Hi, book reading friends. I'm back with another weekly update into my readathons for the month of October. Um, Doing better than I thought at some and not so good at others. I'm switching up my TBR as I go. So I got 3 books done since we talked last. And one of these is one that has stuck with me. It keeps, we've all seen those memes and things on Facebook that talk about how when you finish a good book and you look around and everybody else is acting like life has just gone on like normal and you don't understand how they can do that. Every so often you read that book that just kind of grabs a hold of you and stays with you for a while. And this first one was one of those. I actually won it from Bookish First. If you like to do reviews, Bookish First is a website you can go to and you read an excerpt of the book and you write a brief review of that excerpt, and then you can win the chance to get a hard copy and read the whole book for review. And this is one I won. It's called The Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay. The main character is a Filipino-American young man whose father was from the Philippines, mother was an American. He was born in the Philippines and went back to visit family occasionally, but has lived most of his life. Moved when he was 1 to the States and has lived in the United States all of his life. Was a pen pal of sorts with his cousin for a long time, his cousin June, and then he finds out that his cousin is dead. And his family won't talk about it. The men in his family keep things pretty close to the vest and don't really talk about things. And his father's basic answer is, your uncle doesn't want to talk about it, so I'm going to honor his wishes and not tell you anything. He convinces his parents to let him take his spring break and go to the Philippines. He even misses a couple of days of school to go. And he wants to get to the bottom of it. He wants to find out what happened to June. Part of it is because he refuses to believe that his cousin got caught up in drums. Part of it is because he feels guilty, because they used to write to each other all the time, and then he got caught up in a high school relationship and got wrapped up in a girlfriend and stopped writing his cousin as much. And before long, so much time had gone by that he felt dumb trying to write him again. So he reconnects with family down there, spends the beginning of his trip with an uncle who's kind of a jerk, works for the government, thinks the new president of the Philippines is awesome, and the president of the Philippines, his way of dealing with the drug problem is to just kill people. Kill the drug dealers, kill the drug users, wipe out the problem, which the discussion does come up among some of the characters in the book. Why are we not trying to get help for those that are addicts? But addicts are being gunned down on a regular basis in connection with their dealers. So there's a couple of really good things here. Jay trying to come to terms with his cousin June and why he really died, tracing the boy's path after he left his parents' home, trying to live in this house where nobody talks about June. Like, his sisters don't talk about him, his mom doesn't talk about him. And when he finally brings him up, that's when his uncle is like, you need to go. Because he was going to go stay with a couple of aunts. Anyway, he was going to visit some other family. So he just leaves early to go stay with these 2 aunts. It's really, really good book. This young man has to come to terms with the fact that although he identifies at home as a Filipino American, he knows very little about what it's like to actually live in the Philippines. And his cousin keeps saying to him, you don't live here, you don't know. And so he struggles with, how much of my culture should I try to understand? He doesn't speak the language, and that's a really big deal for him, that he doesn't speak any Tagalog. So he begins to feel sort of convicted to start re-immersing himself in the culture that he came from. Even though he doesn't live there, he doesn't feel that he's honored that part of himself by not being more aware and being able to speak the language. So, slight spoiler, at the end of the book, he does begin to talk about making arrangements to go back for a longer stay. Like, maybe he's getting ready to graduate from high school, and so maybe take a gap year and go back and live in the Philippines for a year, just kind of immerse himself in the culture that birthed him. But it's a really, really good book. It's one of those that when I have some downtime and my brain starts to wander, it wanders back to this story. I'd never heard of Randy Rebay before. Now, the thing I think that is makes this book super powerful. The author himself was born in the Philippines and raised in the Midwest. His main character was born in the Philippines and lives in Michigan, which is technically the Midwest. So he's written a few other books. He lives in San Francisco now, in the San Francisco Bay Area now. But the intensity of the character's experience, I think, was enhanced a lot by the fact that the author could write him from a first person perspective kind of thing. So Patron Saints of Nothing, I gave it a 5-star review. It is an amazing book. Really, really good story. Not necessarily super easy answers or super quick solutions to anything, but just it's a book that will make you think and will make you, even if you're not a member of that culture, it will make you appreciate the challenges faced by someone who traces their ancestry, their recent ancestry, like his father was born in the Philippines, who traces their recent ancestry to another culture, but they haven't really bothered to learn much about or retain much of that culture. And the sort of personal cultural identity crisis that created for the character of Jay in the book. It was really, really good, really, really thought-provoking and powerful to read. Highly recommended for those that like delving into those kind of meaty books. That one fulfilled a couple of different, that one actually hit all three of my all three of my reading challenges. Sorry, I'm trying to read my own chicken scratch on my little note card. In the lotteryathon, my favorite color on the cover, red, of course, being my favorite color. In the supernatural-a-thon, one of the prompts, they're all named after characters. One of the prompts is named after Charlie and calls for an LGBTQ character. His cousin, he finds out, has a girlfriend. His female cousin has a girlfriend, is a lesbian. And then the aunt he goes to stay with for the second part of his trip has been living for years with another woman in a romantic relationship. So, and I get, in a weird way, I appreciated that the book wasn't about them, but that their presence in his life was just a matter of fact. They just were there. And when he goes to the mall and he sees his sister walk off hand, or his cousin walk off hand in hand with another girl, he just kind of goes, oh, okay. Like, it's not the focus of the story, but they're just a part of his life. And I thought that was kind of a nice, it just looked normal. It just looked like a normal part of his life. There was no emphasis on it. There was no, other than the fact that his uncle is so old school and old fashioned that his cousin has to hide her sexual identity from him. But he has family. There's this boy's aunt, it's his sister, who is openly living in a lesbian relationship with a woman. So obviously it's something he's had to come to terms with to at least a degree. And then in the, no, that's the two readathon goals that one hit. This one, I'm going back through and reading a lot of her books again. I've read a lot of them. I'm going to go back and try to reread them all in order. All That Remains by Patricia Cornwell. This hit all three. This was 460 to 501 pages in the lotteryathon. Granted, it's a paperback, so the pages don't have a ton of writing on them. The pages are pretty narrow, but it's like 460, specifically 463 pages. For the lotteryathon, strong female main character, which is the prompt for the character of Jody in the supernatural-a-thon. So that one, and then, this one. This is another new one I just read. Feathers and Fae. I got this one off of a website called booksirens.com. It allows you to download ebooks to review. Specifically, like, the purpose of it is to review the books. Feathers and Fae by Crystal Kirkham. High fantasy. So in the supernatural-a-thon, that covered the prompt for Sam, which was a fantasy book. And 3 or less words in the title for the lotteryathon, Feathers and Fae. High fantasy book. This young lady named Cammie is hanging out with her best friend, Emmett. They've known each other all of their lives. And something creepy starts to happen pretty much right away. There's this figure in the black mist behind them that Emmett keeps seeing. And he does, like, right away you figure out that he's a magical being, because right away he does something to protect Cammie from this thing. He doesn't act surprised that the thing is coming after. He acts surprised that it's that specific thing, but he doesn't act surprised that he's having to do something to protect Cammie. So there's some backstory hinted at there that you get more of later on. Essentially, he does something magical to try to protect her, but his magic works better than he expected it to, and they end up in this alternate reality, this fantasy realm called Mythos. He has to try to get her back to Earth. The legend goes that as all of these different realms, there's Mythos, there's, I don't remember what they call Earth, but it's our reality. They call it something different. And then there is basically what we would call heaven and hell. It's 2 other dimensions, one which is purely neutral, one which is purely evil. He has to try to get her back to Earth. Now, there are places where the barriers between the realms are thinner, but this bad guy that's looking for them will be watching at all of those. So they're going to try to go through what they call the ether, which is sort of purgatory. It's where dead spirits go to be sent on to something else. They meet a former Reaper who used to work in the ether, so she knows how to get them through. And they meet a Yeti in mythos. Magic is real, and the creatures that are a part of our fairy tales really exist in mythos. Unicorns and trolls and all of them. Dwarfs, elves, they all exist in mythos. Um, the characters were great. There are big, big secrets about Emmett's real identity and how long he's actually known Cammy and how old she actually is and who she actually is. And she's really the thing that this evil guy is trying to get. When she arrives in Mythos, she suddenly is able to discern a truth from a lie and realizes that everything Emmett is saying to her is either a half-truth or a complete and bull-faced lie. And he's trying to protect her from the truth because, A, she's not ready to handle it yet, and B, she's in danger. And his real identity has to be protected because he would be much sought after by a lot of different people, or a lot of different creatures, if everyone knew who he really was. So I can't say much more than that without giving away the story, and the story is definitely worth reading. I gave it a 4-star when I did the review on Book Sirens, and the only reason is when I read a high fantasy, I want a really richly built world. Now, I think the reason the world wasn't as richly built and described as I wanted it to be is because in taking these characters on this long journey through they had to go through elvish territory and the dwarf caves and basically the boneyard of the rock people. They had a different name for them. They called them Juntos. They are walking rock people, and when they die, they come to this canyon, and it ends up looking like rock formations, but it's actually carcasses of this race that are rock people. Trying to get them through all of these different regions of this world to the ether so they could escape. I think in getting us to travel from one place to the next, she couldn't spend a lot of time getting into super detailed descriptions of any of the regions that they were in, because the book would have been, 600 pages to do that. But the story is great. The story is really, really well done as far as high fantasy goes. The characters are very well developed. I was really impressed with the fact that as the story goes on, you find out that both Emmett and Cammy are essentially immortal beings in human bodies, in human form. What specifically they are, I won't tell you because that's a part of the big giveaway at the end. It's a part of the big plot moment at the end. But the chemistry between them helps you to buy into that they've known each other for lifetimes, multiple lifetimes, because their way of relating to each other is just so raw and honest. And when Cammy realizes she's being lied to, his devastation at not being able to tell her the complete truth for her own safety, just all of that emotional conflict between the two of them. Crystal Kirkham had done such a great job establishing their relationship and building a depth into it that when they were in conflict, it really kind of tore at me as a reader. I was like, no, they've got to work this out. So you really are rooting for them to beat the big bad in the end, just because as you learn all of their story, you realize they've already weathered so much to get to where they are. It's one of those where it's not going to be fair. It's not fair if they don't get to win in the end. So it's good. It's a definitely a worthwhile read. Like I said, I found it on Book Sirens. It's one I got to download from there and read and review. I already tossed my review for that one up on Book Sirens. It's on Goodreads. It's on Amazon. But Feathers and Fae by Crystal Kirkham, definitely worth the read. Definitely. And like I said, it was a 4-star only because I'm a big fan of a really, really richly developed, super detailed world. But I don't know that she could have done the story justice the way she wanted to do it. Had she spent too much time on the descriptions, we would have lost some of the momentum. And it's pretty action-packed and pretty quick moving. So I think she sacrificed some of that detailed description in the world building to keep the momentum of the story going. So it was a really good book. Definitely recommend it. Definitely worth the read if you like high fantasy. So where we go from here, we only got a few days left in October. So I am trying to finish up as many books as I can. Whether or not I'll get through all of them in the lottery-a-thon, I don't know. I have a better chance at getting through all of them for the Supernatural-a-thon. I think I only have 1, 2, 3 or 4 more to read in the Supernatural-a-thon. I have a few more than that to read in the lottery-a-thon. As strange as it sounds, I am going to grab A Christmas Carol and reread that as one of my books because it's on 2 of the readathons at least. Also looking at a couple of books. I haven't decided for sure yet. There's a couple more I'm going to go to. I always have a couple running at all times just because that's how I do things. If I get bored with one, I can go read the other one just for the fun of it. So, but that's where we are in November. I've looked at a couple of the readathons that are out there, still deciding. I know there's a real quick to read, quick to finish one called the Thankful-a-thon that I might take part in. The biggest challenge for me in doing any kind of a readathon in November is I have the first weekend completely booked. I've got state solo contest with my color guard girls, and then I'm playing for some college vocal students at a competition in another city that could turn into an overnight trip if any of them makes it to the second day of competition. And then the next weekend, the following Thursday, hubby and I leave right after he gets out of work to go to Washington, D.C. We're driving the equipment trailer for the band and orchestra program at senior high. We're off to participate in a Veterans Day event in Washington, D.C. And then we'll get home the following Wednesday. And then we're creeping up on Thanksgiving and state competition for the color guard. And so November's going to be busy. So whether or not I do any readathon at all, it probably will be something short and sweet and simple and quick. As far as reading goals go, I do like a lot of people. I set my reading goal on the Goodreads website, and I've surpassed that by several books already. So no problem there. I'm going to get that one done. So other than that, we will be pursuing at least a few more books to try to get a few more read before the end of the month. And I'll give you a month wrap up when I get to the end of the month. And then I'll let you know, if anything, what I'm doing as far as readathons go in November. But beyond that, have a great rest of your weekend. It's Saturday night when I record this, so hopefully it's up on Sunday. And let me know in the comments what books you're reading.